One of the many shameful aspects of the Great Famine in Ireland is that 1 million people were left to die of starvation, yet the country was producing vast amounts of food at the time. This food, that could have been used to save the dying, was instead shipped out of the country to be sold for profit in England. How could such a perverse policy be allowed to happen? The answer lies in the attitude of the British ruling classes at the time. The Whig government of Prime Minister Lord John Russell had an unshakable belief in free trade. They were opposed to anything that would distort the market and damage the balance of supply and demand. This was an approach enthusiastically enforced by Charles Trevelyan, the Secretary of the Treasury and the man in charge of famine relief in Ireland. His main priority, far above that of feeding the starving, was that there should be no interference with trade. If landowners could earn more for Irish grain by selling it in England or in Europe rather than making it available to the destitute in Ireland, then so be it. This caused enormous resentment in Ireland, especially as many of the landowners Trevelyan was protecting were actually English. It was even too much to take for some of Trevelyan's own British administrators. In the summer of 1846, Sir Randolph Routh urged that Irish ports should be closed to prevent the export of grain. Trevelyan flatly refused and wrote back saying, "Do not encourage the idea of prohibiting exports. Perfect free trade is the right course." Routh stood his ground and again insisted that it was essential to close the ports. Otherwise, more than 60,000 tons of grain that could be used to feed the starving would instead be shipped abroad. He said it was a serious evil to export food in the middle of such a crisis. Trevelyan, with the full backing of the government, would not be moved. He'd made his position clear as soon as he came into office by closing down the depots providing food for the poor, which had been set up by the previous government of Sir Robert Peel at the outbreak of the famine. Trevelyan wanted there to be no free handouts to the poor. He wrote, "The Irish peasants are perverse and prefer to beg than borrow. They would rather eat free English food than labour for their own." Instead, he increased the number of public works projects, ensuring that the starving would have to earn some money if they wanted to be fed. These works involved hard physical labour, such as building roads and walls or repairing fences. Too much for people already weak and emaciated from hunger. As the death toll mounted, the clamour for the government to provide more help grew so strong it could no longer be ignored. The Belfast newspaper, The Vindicator, captured the national mood in an article published on the 3rd of October 1846. "Give us food or we perish" is now the loudest cry that is heard in this unfortunate country. It is heard in every corner of the island. "Give us food or we perish." It is a strange popular cry to be heard within the limits of the powerful and wealthy British Empire. Russia wants liberty, Prussia wants a constitution, Switzerland wants religion, Spain wants a king, Ireland alone wants food. Trevelyan reluctantly accepted that something would have to be done, although his heart wasn't really in it. He tried to buy corn abroad, but it proved hard to find. The European harvest had been low that summer, and there was very little surplus available. America had supplies, but attempts to ship it to Ireland would be hampered by the coming winter, which would freeze the trade lines of the American rivers. In the meantime, the public works schemes designed to give the poor the chance to earn money for food were running into difficulties. There were delays in getting them started due to poor administration, and they proved to have little value. Then, just as everyone thought that things could surely get no worse, one of the severest winters for years set in. To add to the death toll from hunger and famine-related diseases, many labourers on the public works schemes collapsed and died from exposure. Meanwhile, the government continued to dally, the starving continued to die, and the ships laden with oats, wheat and barley continued to sail out of Irish ports. A ban on food exports might not have prevented the famine entirely, But most historians agree that it would have saved hundreds of thousands of lives, especially if the government had been quicker and better at providing alternative supplies. By the time the famine was over, 5 years had passed. 1 million people had died of starvation or famine-related diseases, and 1 million more were emigrating. Even today, the population of Ireland is lower than it was at the start of the famine in 1845.